Mike Florio joins us now. What's the most important thing on the table at the owners' meetings?
Well, even though they're not going to have a vote on playoff expansion, that's the big issue. Look, the Super Bowl, who cares? They're going to pick a city. They do that every year. There's no big intrigue there. It's not like they're going to do it in New York or any other controversial place. Playoff expansion is the thing that is looming over the league, and they'd like to get it in place by 2015.
When are they going to vote?
Well, they always could today. I mean, a vote's not expected, which means it could happen. It just would be unexpected. But I think they really do want to have their ducks in a row, both with the union and with the networks. You want to know how much money you're going to get for that Sunday night primetime wild card game, for that Monday night primetime wild card game, before you actually sign off. And there is some resistance out there. Guys like John Mara, the Giants co-owner, against playoff expansion. All it takes is 9 owners to kill it. So you want to be in position to win the vote before you put it out there for a vote. I still think they're in that position of gathering information and ultimately getting enough people on board with the idea.
Yeah, but the commissioner doesn't float this if he doesn't know what the votes would be.
Well, but part of it is floating it so you start to get votes in your favor. You talk about things hoping that you get public support behind you, and that translates into votes. I mean, he talked a lot about an 18-game regular season.
Yeah.
He hadn't talked about an 18-game regular season recently because he knows it's not going anywhere.
How would you vote?
I'd vote to expand the playoffs. I would, because I don't think it undermines. I mean, you're always concerned you have too many teams in there, but there are teams that get hot late in the season that could really do damage in the postseason if they get in. They've looked at statistically if playoffs were expanded, there wouldn't have been many or any teams with losing records over the last 10 years. And even a team that's 7-9, if they get hot after Thanksgiving, they could give that number 2 seed a run for its money. This year it would have been Arizona at Carolina if there had been a 7 seed from the NFC, and Arizona handled Carolina pretty easily in the regular season.
And the Steelers would have gotten in, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but they got blown out in New England, so
yeah,
that's the other side of the coin. But you never know. You get into that anything can happen, single elimination, and we had 4 wild card games this year. 3 of them were very good. One was an upset, Chargers over the Bengals, but it wasn't very close. You add 2 extra games, you're increasing the possibility that every year you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 of those games that has a great outcome, a memorable finish, an exciting thing, and it propels that team to the next round. And, we've seen teams 5 seed, 6 seed run the table and win the Super Bowl.
No chance that this would be implemented for this year?
No chance. It's not going to happen because, number one, there's no TV deal in place for it, and number 2, the schedules are already set. It's next year at the earliest, and I think they'd love to get it in place for next year.
Any word on the team that will be on Hard Knocks?
Well, here's the thing. When the Giants reportedly were excused from the obligation, they were one of the 8 teams in the mix. Part of that report was that there are enough other volunteers, so it doesn't sound like somebody's going to get tapped on the shoulder. I think they always want the team that does it to want to do it, unless it's just a team that the league flat out doesn't want. You don't want to get in a position where you're twisting someone's arm to do this, although that would make it even more compelling. So for now, no, we know teams that aren't going to do it. We just don't know the team that is going to do it.
Yeah, I asked Jeff Fisher about that, if the Rams would do it. He said highly unlikely, but the Michael Sam intrigue was the only reason why that would be interesting for me.
And they're one of the 8 teams, Dan.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, under this new approach, they're one of the 8 teams that could be said, whether you like it or not, you're doing it. Enough owners have voted that this is the approach, this is the policy, and if you don't want to do it, well, you're just going to have to do it. There's plenty of things NFL teams don't want to do that they have to do.
He's Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Let me stay with Michael Sam for a moment. I've said all along, if I'm going to believe what you're telling me and you want to be a football player, then don't have this reality show there. It doesn't mean it's not the right decision for him as he looks at whatever his NFL future is. If you barely got into the league draft-wise, then you start to look at what your career is going to be after football. Would you have done this if you're Michael Sam? Would you have done the deal with Oprah Winfrey?
I would have done it, but I also would have been upfront about it and disclosed it. I think that's where he ran into some trouble here, and that's the great irony. He's praised for having the courage to disclose his sexuality, and then he hides this reality show he's going to do because that's going to affect his ability to get drafted. I still say he'd have been better off not being drafted. He'd have been better off going undrafted and picking his team without a depth chart that is loaded with pass rushers like the Rams. The Rams drafted him in part because they knew they weren't going to be able to convince undrafted free agents at defensive end to come join the team. He'd have been better off going off the board completely, but also he would have been better off disclosing to all teams, hey, this is part of what you're getting if you draft me.
I had somebody with the league office give me a dirty look, cringing at my question for Jeff Fisher. If the league, helped steer or a nudge to teams late in that final round to draft Michael Sam, do you think there was any motive there, initiative to make sure that he was drafted?
I think that this is one of those topics, Dan, where no one from the league office had to make it known. That I think the teams generally, at least the teams who get it, and I'd say most of the teams do get it, they understand that someone needed to step up and draft Michael Sam. Again, even though he'd be much more likely to make the final roster somewhere if he'd had a chance to pick where he was going to go.
Do you think another team was going to draft Sam if St. Louis did not?
Well, maybe when you get down to 254, 255, 256, that's when phone calls start getting made. And, hey, will somebody please? I'd have to look and see who else was on there. I thought the Patriots were going to be inclined to take a chance on him because Bob Kraft, the owner of the team, has said multiple times, even before Michael Sam came out as gay, that he'd welcome a gay player in New England, and they're an organization that would embrace the diversity. And so I thought the Patriots would do it. I just don't know if they had a pick from 250 to 256.
This Robert Mathis situation, there's no uproar. I mentioned this yesterday, that if this was baseball, we would be yelling from the mountaintops here. But here we are, Robert Mathis coming off a remarkable year, a statistical anomaly that his age, again, you're going to have 19 and a half sacks, and now he tests positive here for a fertility drug. Is he going to fight this?
Well, he already has. He's done everything that he can to appeal it, and once it's finalized, that's when it's announced. Once the league announces it, there's nothing the player can do. Every once in a while, somebody tries to go to court. That rarely works. The court system usually says, you've got your own arbitration you've set up, so we have less court cases. We're not going to go in and start looking at these because we like the fact that we have less litigation to deal with. So it's a private arbitration process that the NFL and the union is set up. And that's the thing. Everything that's in place, the policy, the substances, the one strike, strict liability, if it's in your system, no matter how it got there, you get suspended 4 games. That's all been bargained for and approved by the union. So this is a product of what the union has put in place for all players. And if the players don't like it, they need to go back to the table and say, maybe we should change this policy.
But does it make last season, bring into question what Robert Mathis did last season?
It should, if the public cared about that as much as they care about it when it comes to baseball. I don't know why there's a double standard here. I don't know if it's because the baseball purists want to be able to make bright line comparison of statistics from era to era all the way back to 1893. But in football, I just don't think anybody cares. And I think we look at football players, and it's like, well, of course they're doing something to be that big and to take that pounding and to recover from those injuries, and just the populace doesn't seem to be troubled by it at all.
Yeah, there's a WWE mentality that's for our entertainment. We don't care what you're putting in your body or if you die when you're 50.
As long as you score your touchdowns for my fantasy team and it's compelling to watch, well, we can deal with it. And it's WWE, and it's you go to the movies. You think all those guys are natural that get as ripped as they are for the movies? I mean, that's the one area where it's not regulated, so they're all doing it.
The Browns said that they weren't banning the national media, as much as they were just accommodating the local media.
I guess I see the logic there. I mean, it's easier for the beat writers to get up to the front of the podium if there aren't a bunch of national people. They're trying to feel their way through this. I understand that they don't want to have a sideshow, but for a team that has been irrelevant for most of the last 20 years, they're relevant, and they need to embrace that. Look at Jacksonville. They love the fact that they had 6,500 fans at a rookie minicamp practice. They don't want people to go away. They want people to pay attention to them. That's the big part of this business. It's ultimately entertainment. You want fans and media and everyone to be paying attention to what you're doing, and people are finally paying attention to the Browns. They need to just throw open their arms and say, come on in and buy a hat and a jersey while you're here.
Before I let you go, the point after experiment in preseason, it's going to be from where?
What they moved it, they initially voted on the 20, and now they've moved it to like the 50. It's just ridiculous and goofy, and I think they're trying to create so much confusion that ultimately the fans will say, just get rid of the darn thing. We can't keep track of where they're going to snap the ball from.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, see you, buddy.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. You can watch him every night, 5:30 Eastern on NBC Sports Network. Drew Brees, Mike Evans will join him later on tonight.